I'm back again. But what
You're
you
back.
said just it just prompted a memory that recently I came across. I thought was really good, and I've been kind of using it for a while now, which is that let's call it guidance comes through or inspiration comes through. It could even be something trivial like an idea pops in, and immediately the ego wants to take credit for it. Like the character wants to take credit for it. Oh, I thought of this. How clever am I? When in fact, really all it is let's call it presence, being comes through, and this thing shows up, like a new way of doing something shows up. And then the ego immediately wants to take credit for it. I just laugh at that because I've been watching it and it's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah, right. It's really
And
funny.
then with and that's totally okay if it does that, but then it also has the opposite, you know. I did good, I did bad.
Yeah, same. Yes.
And it can be taken lightly, and that doesn't need to be identification, but it's when it's taken seriously, you know, taken that it's important for you to be seen as somebody that's done something, as useful, as part of this society. And that can be useful as in, you know, it can be, you know, good for the character to have something to work on, but it's when it's taken as you. You know, so Nisargadatta, you could say, his mission was to speak about non-duality with people. So there was a movement in that body to do something that's helpful, but it's nobody in there that does it. So he has that idea, has that feeling to do it in the character realm, but there's a deep knowing that it's not him. So it manifests as a character doing satsang, wanting to seemingly do satsang, but there's a deep knowing that it belongs to no one, that it's all God's will. So it's really not him.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa.
Me too. That's why this is done here. Like,
Yeah.
in the character level, there is such an in loveness with non-duality. It's so beautiful. But I can also see how it's really not beautiful to some people. It's like, doesn't make sense. And so then maybe they become Christians, and maybe there is too a finding God, a non-division, you know, through service, through helping people. Through all types of contradictory ideas, there is something which ends the separation between them and God.
It's kind of a humility and a peace, and recognizing that I'm not doing any of this, that this is inevitable, this is what's arising, and to step back and just allow it all to keep moving like that.
Yeah.
It just
God is speaking us.
Mm.
God is speaking us. God is moving us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks.
It's so blissful. But I can understand it's some people's horror, but to me it's so blissful. It's so, just see it saying that. It's such a beautiful thing. Like it feels like bliss is coming off my tongue in saying it. And it's interesting because it's, you know, like saying I'm going to make a cup of tea, that's also appearing in this, and that's beautiful, like making a cup of tea. When you specifically say things like God is doing something, it's like here, it feels like bliss comes up to the tongue.
Well, you know, then there's this trusting that with everything that's going on, regardless of how horrific it may seem in the story of the world, that somehow it's all perfect.
Yeah.
Somehow, which doesn't mean we're not compassionate. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means there's an inherent, somehow an expanding knowing that it's all okay somewhere, somehow.
Yeah. And it is all perfect, and I think that that's really good to contemplate that. But sometimes that can be an avoidance of, like, this is where I really like the Buddha's teaching, and people would not misinterpret it, they would interpret it in different ways. But the Buddha taught, you know, the first noble truth is the realization that life is suffering. And I feel like this is important to really contemplate. It can be really scary, and we don't want to go there because we have such faith in life and in faith in this dream of life and faith of it all working out. But maybe like life in that way, as the way we see it as life, it just doesn't work out. Like life, you know, everything is changing, everything is growing and changing, and you know, like, so imagine Khaleesi, my dog. So she was out the other day and she'd found a hedgehog, and she really wanted to eat the hedgehog, but she couldn't because he kept rolling in a ball, and then she got pricked on her face, you know, so it was painful for her. But imagine if she had got in there and like half destroyed the hedgehog. She'd found a way, maybe didn't even properly kill it, so it then spent the next couple of days dying in pain. Or my mum came across like this hedgehog dying and all the birds were pecking it. We want to keep that out. As humans, we want to not see that, you know. We outsource the killing of animals for a reason. We outsource people dying for a reason. When I say outsource, we get other people to do it for a reason. Like, because we just don't want to see this part of life, because we don't really want to accept that it doesn't work. You know, the idea of salvation in life, the idea of this perfect life, that people are going to go out of here dying like a really peaceful death and it's going to be really beautiful. It's not the truth. And I feel like bad for saying this to people in some way, because I know that I'll be misunderstood in what I'm saying, and it will be taken the wrong way, and it will maybe scare some people and upset some people. But it's kind of like the seeker giving up on hoping that life is going to work out. You know, that life is going to be perfect. The perfection comes from the beingness, from that which isn't moving. In life, it's like one object is changing to another. It's this constant change. And there is going to be pain, and there is going to be destruction, and there is going to be like, difficulties. And especially at the moment, there's most probably going to be more wars because of people's mentality and what's happening and all these types of things happening in this dream. And I'm really sorry about it, and it's sad. But what we have to do to really sort of come to this subject is an acceptance of this. You know, and as life goes on, you know, we're born, and as we go on, it's a gradual thing. Us, you know, as apparent individuals, begin to see this, you know. We watch our parents dying, we watch our kids growing up and suffering and having difficulty. We also watch beauty, you know, we watch our parents laughing and having a good time, and we see our good kids, but it's this oscillation, you know, this, and it's not the romantic death that we hope for them, and it's not the romantic life we hope for them. And it's the coming out of that. You know, you've to give up the bad, you've got to give up the good. It's the coming back to beingness. But I don't mean to scare the shit out of everybody now, because that is a scary subject to embark on questioning. But, you know, the noble truth, from my understanding, is the recognition that life is suffering. And he recognized this by going out of his palace. So he lived in, I'm sure you know his story, and everyone interprets the story differently, but he lived in this palace and then going out and realizing suffering in the world, like seeing a man dying on the street, and then there was a swan dying. I forget all the paths in which he realized that life was suffering. It was like death, disease, and I've forgotten that part of the teaching. But it's giving up on this idea that life is going to be just beautiful, just perfect. It's perfect from beingness. It's perfect from our nature. In life, it's always in change. How does that sit?
You know, this is unavoidable.
Yeah.
Just the thought that this place, say the cosmos, but let's just take this planet, everything kills and eats everything else in order to survive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what the hell's that all about, right? So,
It could have like given us light dust or something, like the plants.
right,
But even the plants
exactly.
have things, but it's like we could have just consumed light. We have to consume other objects. It's like it's such a intense experience, this life, and we try to outsource it to not see it. And in a way, it creates more suffering rather than like holding it. But I can also understand, you know, if you're traumatized and you're holding too much trauma, that's too stressful to look at. But if you can deal with the trauma and that type of things through the therapeutic, then maybe there can be the more the exploration of this, that life doesn't work. It's not going to work. You can become the most famous painter or best life coach or the kindest person or lose all your reactivity, and it's just not going to work. You're never going to be able to keep the house standing. You know, this life is, what is that word? The life is like constantly in, I've forgotten that scientific word, where it's always falling apart.
Oh, entropy.
The entropy, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even that, you know, there's this, for me, it's obviously a process, but there's this, when I contemplate things like that, somehow there's more of a settling in. And like you said, I really like the way you word it. The absence of not trusting is different than trusting.
Yeah.
That somehow I chose this, the big I chose this, as we all did, and there's purpose in it. And that will all become apparent as we wake up to that. It will just be, it will just be. And that'll be, as you said, when you started today, it's the most beautiful thing you could imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't know that until you are that and are knowing that.
Yeah.
And that's a process too.
Maybe I misunderstood when you started speaking, but that's really beautiful because I feel like our conversation was lovely. But I misunderstood when you said purpose. I thought you meant a human purpose, but I
No.
think that you may be meant like the prior purpose, like from a Course in Miracles perspective, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was a sweet conversation.
Yeah. Nice.